Welcome to Sex Help for Smart People. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Jurgens, former science professor turned somatic sexologist and intimacy coach. This podcast is all about helping smart women over 40 and their partners of all genders get the evidence-based relationship and intimacy support you need for great sex and connections. I'm glad you're here, so let's get at it. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 24. Today is Flirting 101. So whether you're partnered or not, flirting is such an important skill. You probably know that because it feels delicious to you. Most of us think that. If it doesn't, that's cool too. But the vast majority of us really enjoy a good flirt. And it's one of these skills that a lot of us don't really spend much time learning to do very well. I was really excited to learn more about flirting when I discovered all the things I could learn. So I want to share those things with you. And today we're going to talk about why we want to flirt, including in long-term relationships. We'll also cover how to avoid creepy or icky flirting, how to appreciate people's looks without dehumanizing them, 6 primary ways to flirt, and how to use grounded sexual energy to be magnetic and sexy with it. All right. So first up, why bother flirting? I mean, you don't have to, but you may have some goals around connecting with people in a sexual way, or even if you're asexual and you happen to be listening to this podcast, you may enjoy flirting energy anyway because it feels really good. And it's just a really, flirting is everywhere in the animal kingdom. And it's not just humans, but it is a very human thing to do. It expresses interest and attention. And in long-term partnerships, it really helps us continue to cultivate a great connection and a great sex life because flirting makes us feel wanted and playful and just all those exact feelings that we need to cultivate in long-term partnerships to keep things fresh and sexy. And if you're not in a long-term partnership and you are dating, or if you are in a long-term partnership and you are openly non-monogamous and you are also dating, then you may have desire to flirt with new people and really experience that sort of like new connection energy through flirting. So flirting is such an important part of human sexuality and sort of the first step in what we call, for a lack of better term, which I would love a better term, foreplay, as if there's some sort of foregone conclusion, right? But play, think of it as a step in play. A lot of people actually, it's interesting. A lot of people wind up looking for attention outside their primary partnerships, whether honestly through open non-monogamy or dishonestly through cheating, simply to experience more flirting energy. A lot of people actually don't necessarily even want to fuck someone else. They just love that energy of flirting and that feels really good. And they may not be getting it as much in their long-term partnership because sometimes we kind of forget, whether a lot of it's innocent, right? We're just busy people. We have jobs and kids and mortgages and we have forgotten to flirt with each other. And we've also started to make it something that the other person, quote unquote, should do, but not necessarily something we should do. And so it's sort of like who goes first? And maybe I haven't been flirted with for a long time and there can be resentments building up. So, if that's something that's going on in your relationship and there's resentments, we need to clear that out. Feel free to come talk to me if you want help with that. But this episode is really about when you are ready to re-engage with flirting, whether as a dating person or in your partnership, how can you really look at it clearly and intentionally and say, okay, what is it that I really like? What is it that my partner seems to like? Can we have conversations about what we like? And how can we increase it and really ratchet up our flirting? So we are doing that today. And this idea of what even is flirting, right? What is it? We kind of know it when we feel it, when we know that somebody's flirting with us. It can feel really wonderful. It can be sort of a sense of deep attention, of playful interest, right? And then on the other hand, there could be bad flirting or persistent unwanted attention, which can feel kind of either sad and pathetic, or at its worst, it can feel really gross, creepy, and dehumanizing. So it is really worth thinking about intentionally, how do we do flirting well? And how can we be more empowered to flirt well and have more fun with it, knowing that we are kind of competent, right? That always makes us feel a little bit better about things when we feel competent. So, like a lot of things with humans in our culture, and we talk about this on this podcast all the time, we are trained drastically differently by gender from an early age about so many things. And the world presents us with different risks and fears based on our gender. For example, people socialized as girls are really very aware of risks of sexual assault and just dehumanizing through objectification. So there are often very gendered preferences in flirting because of these ways that we're socialized, both socialized to how to interact with each other. Girls are socialized very differently around their interactions than boys are socialized around their interactions, but also in terms of these risks and fears. So just being aware of that there are differences, and especially for heterosexual couples or people who are dating heterosexually, remembering that you are socialized very differently from the people that you are trying to flirt with. And that can have profound impacts on what your assumptions are and what their assumptions are. So it's worth understanding each other a little bit better. And then also, for queer couples, even when you have people who are socialized similarly by gender, there can be some serious pitfalls there. And we'll talk about a few of those today. But so remember, socialization by gender or by any other trait tends to lead to trends with people, but it doesn't apply to everyone in these groups, right? So there are also socializations by age or generation or life experience, nationality, ethnicity, race, and language of like primary language. And so, but none of them apply to everyone in those groups, but they can be very distinct and very distinct trends. So, for example, life experience often means that women over 40, like me, have developed much better BS detectors and are less tolerant of inauthenticity. And at the same time, we might be more tolerant of fumbles and more responsive to sort of honest interest than women in their 20s who may still be used to playing more power games left over from, middle school and high school, early sort of efforts at engaging in flirtation. And in general, one of the trends by gender is that women often don't realize people are flirting with us, especially if someone is just using friendliness and compliments. So the opposite trend is really common for men, and often people socialized as men will assume people are flirting with them or sexually attracted to them, even when they're not, simply because those people are being friendly or kind, and that can get men into trouble. So one is either thinking your own flirting or attraction is obvious when it's not, and being sort of perpetually puzzled as to why you're getting friend zoned, right? Or assuming sexual interest from someone when it's not there can be off-puttingly arrogant, or it can even lead to kind of creepy boundary violating actions if you are one of those men who has assumed someone is sexually attracted to you when they're not. But since women often don't think someone is flirting or attracted, even when they are, this can be a huge challenge for queer women especially. Women are often socialized to use compliments towards each other just to cement social bonds of friendship. And so for queer women, flirting with women can be really hard if you're trying to just use compliments. You can be stuck in this like friend zone ocean with no idea how to paddle your way to the like sexy island and let her know you're actually interested in more. So I'll cover a few of ways to get around that today. This is kind of like a sampler platter for flirting, right? This is a topic I work with clients on all the time, and there are a lot of individual nuances, but the kind of commonalities across all types of socialization are that as humans, we want to be seen, valued, and respected. We often really enjoy playfulness and an assumption that we are multifaceted individuals with a lot to offer, as well as generally attractive. Like that, those are all the kind of messages we really seek in flirting, right? We want messages, not that we're just hot, but that we want to kind of know that the person sees us as a broader, worthwhile individual, right? And so that brings me to something really important to understand. And this is the difference between constructive and destructive objectification. So a lot of people are worried, okay, if I find someone attractive and I'm looking at their looks, does that mean I'm objectifying them and I have to stop? And I want to offer the answer is no. For some people, maybe they might not like that, but there are some ways to look at someone and appreciate their looks and their aesthetic beauty without destructively objectifying them. And that is by constructively objectifying them. So what's the difference? When we look at someone and we find them aesthetically pleasing in some way, maybe something about them is beautiful or intriguing, they have interesting features, we can either reduce them to just that, where how they look becomes their value to us. That is destructive objectification. And it is the common type that most women in this culture receive from men and from the media. And it's what enables things like trophy wives and, bros choosing girlfriends to impress other guys, right? It is destructive because how someone looks becomes everything we think matters about them. And when you are the receiving end of that, it feels pretty fucking shitty. And I strongly suggest avoiding it. And if you have a tendency to do it, be on top of yourself and work on seeing people more broadly, being curious about them, understanding that you don't see them fully. You never will. And just valuing them more deeply for all the things they are that you can't see. But we don't have to decide, if we don't want to do that it's just awful to ever appreciate someone's looks. It's not. And we can choose another path, which is constructive objectification, which means that we can decide all these attractive features we see, this aesthetic enjoyment, is just one small piece of who this person is and has very little to do with their whole value as a person. We can decide it's just an enjoyable thing about this complex being in front of us. We can appreciate that there is more that we don't see, right? Yet we also get to enjoy what we do see. And so we can acknowledge that what we're seeing in them, their looks, makes us feel is actually about us and what we are constructing out of their looks. And that they themselves are multifaceted, complex human beings. That is constructive objectification, and it doesn't actually feel very shitty to receive. It can feel really nice. And sometimes, when someone just enjoys our looks but sees us as this whole complex person, it feels really appreciative and safe. And if you stay on that side of the ledger, then appreciating someone's looks isn't a bad thing, and you generally will express it in ways that are well received, as long as they are a person who can receive compliments, which is a whole different kettle of fish. But we want to flirt in ways that people actually want to be flirted with, right? And constructive objectification is a much more likely to land well with people than destructive objectification. Okay. So aside from looks, there are a lot of things that work generally in flirting to indicate playful and respectful interest for most people. I'm going to give you a list of 6 things, but I want to say something really important first, and that is all of these things and literally anything else you do will be most impactful and effective if you are connected to your own authentic sexual energy. That means not up in your head, worried about whether this person is going to validate you by responding in the way that you want, but you are deeply connected to yourself. You are feeling your whole body. You are connected to your pelvis, your genitals. You are also feeling boundaried and confident. And I know that can be a really tall order going into a flirting situation, especially one with strangers, right? But just being grounded in your worth and not looking at other people as if they're there to validate your worth in that moment is a really big skill to develop. If you haven't developed it yet, please reach out. I work with people on this all the time. But the idea is, look, if you're not connected to your body, if you're not grounded and boundaried, no matter what you do, it will tend to come across as fake or creepy or kind of like needy. So I'm going to tell you these top 6 ways to flirt, but please remember that being grounded, boundaried, and connected to your body is what actually makes any of these things effective. And I will give you an exercise at the end to help you get started on that here today. But just, keep that in mind that you can jump through all the hoops. You can do everything right on paper, but it's really about the energy that you're bringing, because humans, we are very, very able to tell what is going on with someone else non-verbally, even if we can't articulate it. We have great spidey senses for whether someone is connected to themselves, whether they are boundaried and grounded and centered and confident or not. So it's really hard to sort of pull one over on people, especially when they're not sort of all up in their own heads and after the sort of teenage years. Okay, so here are the 6 key ways to flirt. I want you to think about, while you listen to this, which ones turn your crank the most? Which ones do you enjoy receiving the most? Which ones are you really good at giving? And which ones do you maybe want to work on a little bit? Okay, so number 1, really good, genuine attention. Paying attention to someone, not just like watching their face because it's pretty while they talk, but really listening when they speak and asking questions that reflect your genuine interest. Number 2, eye contact and smiling. This is kind of obvious, right? But a lot of us forget to do it. And some folks don't love eye contact, especially if you're a little neurospicy, and that's totally okay. But a heck of a lot of people love eye contact for flirting. And if you add in like a nice slow smile, you've often got a really great flirty moment. Number 3, touch with consent. So when you have a new person, like a stranger, you need to remember to ask before you touch them. Even for things like a hug, hey, would you like a hug? Or can I give you a hug? Is it okay if I touch your hand? It can be really simple. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic thing. But when consent is established, or if you have an established partner where you have blanket consent for touching, a gentle touch on the arm or hand or on the back of the neck or the leg can just be really delicious flirting, right? And especially remember to combine these things. Combine your touch with eye contact and a smile. Combine your touch with genuine attention, asking a question about what somebody's saying, right? All of a sudden, when it's connected to sexual energy, that can be really spicy. When it's not connected to sexual energy, all this stuff is just kind of rote and doesn't come across as flirting at all. All right, number 4, playing with your body orientation and nearness or farness. So this doesn't mean getting right up in someone's space at all. Please don't do that. But angling your body towards them, keeping an open posture, and also moving towards someone at like kind of a measured pace while respecting their personal space can be really effective, especially in conjunction with the being connected to your sexual energy and good eye contact. So that's like oh my gosh, melts me, right? For me, some attention with eyes from across the room from someone who is like connected to themselves, they're looking at me and they sort of slowly move towards me. I just completely melt. That is absolutely my favorite. So playing with body orientation and nearness, farness. Number 5 is authentic playfulness and humor. This can just be such a nice way to connect, and it can also be a great way to filter out the people who are a bad match in the humor department for you. And that is okay. You do not have to be everybody's cup of tea. You just want to figure out if your humor is going to land with them. If it doesn't, and you are, I don't know, whatever, at a party and you said something that you think is hilarious and this person you thought is hot is just not amused, great. Congratulations. You have just learned how to not waste your time on that person because they're never going to find you more funny than they do in this moment. So it is actually a really good filter. But remember, the cardinal rule is authenticity. It has to be true to you for it to land well, right? So if we're just kind of bullshitting or trying to tell awful jokes, and that's not our thing. I mean, if you're good at telling awful jokes, they can be great. But if it's not your thing and you just memorized the dad joke book in the car before you walked in, it's probably not going to work too well. All right. The last one, number 6, high quality compliments, not shitty compliments, which sounds obvious, right? But a lot of us, here's the difference. Verbal compliments can be good. But if you are early in dating someone or just meeting them, I suggest avoiding offering only physical compliments to women in particular, unless they say that's what they like. You want to add compliments about people's strengths, their competencies, their choices, their insights, their qualities, or how they make you feel, right? Not just physical things that you're observing. And also be careful if compliments are your only flirt. Some people are not able to receive compliments well, or they have experienced manipulative compliments that have made them wary. So make sure you're authentic and you're also doing all the nonverbals. And here's where hot tip for my queer women. I have so much love for you in this because it is really easy to get constantly friend-zoned when you are dating women. Even when you go on an explicit date with someone who you have met on an app, you will it's just mind-boggling. You just wind up being like, how do I get out of this like friend zone morass, right? And here's the thing. We have to be really fucking obvious about sexy compliments when we are women dating women. So avoid complimenting her stuff or just basic features. So not like, I love your hair, because that's a very friend zone compliment. That's something that women are socialized to expect from other women, know from other women as a compliment that says friend. Okay. Also, not the stuff. Avoid the stuff. Like, I love that shirt. That is a friend zone compliment. Instead, you need to be really obvious. So compliments instead, like, you make that shirt look so sexy, right? There I am. I'm complimenting her, not the shirt. I'm just saying she makes that thing look sexy. So it's really obvious, and that's okay. That's good. And I strongly suggest you use all the nonverbals. The eye contact, the touch with consent, the playing with proximity, and even getting really blunt and saying, I want to make sure you know I'm totally flirting with you. This can be really important for women flirting with women. You have to hit women over the head with the flirting, like let them know, right? So if you are one of those guys who gets constantly friend zoned, chances are you're we need to help you with like being in your sexual energy in a safe way that feels good to the women that you're flirting with and that feels sexy. And please reach out. I help people with that all the time. But you also can try this like really obvious, just telling people that you're flirting with them, and also making sure that you are complimenting them and not their stuff. But remember, if you are a dude dating women, we are generally very tired of being destructively objectified by men. Tired of having our looks be the only thing that matter about us and being expected to be nice about it rather than tired of it, right? Nice rather than competent even, and tired of having our boundaries crossed. So when you actually put in the effort to compliment women and you're a dude, compliment our competencies and show respect for us, it makes such a huge impact and it will help you stand out from the crowd. So I do suggest doing things a little bit differently for women dating women versus men dating women. All right, so those are the big 6. Genuine attention, eye contact with smile, touching with consent, playing with body orientation and nearness, farness, authentic playfulness, humor, and high quality compliments. Okay. So we're going to wrap this up today by coming back to this idea of grounded, boundaried, connected sexual energy thing that is at the center of what makes all flirting work. And I'm going to just give you a little exercise to help you get started with how to do that. I can teach this way more in depth to my clients, right? Because we have more time together and we can practice together. And it can take a bit of practice, even though it's not that hard. Everybody can do it. But this will get you started. So I want you to take a few deep breaths. Now, if you are driving, don't close your eyes. But if you are not driving or doing something like operating heavy machinery, do go ahead and close your eyes and take a couple deep breaths into your belly. And then see if you can bring that breath all the way down to your pelvic floor. See if you can breathe into your genitals. Let your breath go all the way down to your pelvis and see if you can notice aliveness and sensation in your genitalia. Let the breath and the aliveness and your connection to your pelvis just fill you up. And it doesn't have to be, you don't need anyone else for this. It's not for anybody else. Let it just be for you. So see if you can just keep that connection and awareness of your pelvis with you while you open up your eyes and connect with other people. And see if while you connect with this energy in yourself, you can just let yourself be aware that other people have their own energy in themselves. And let them be separate and let yourself just enjoy the sort of circuit of energy in your body. All right, that'll get you started. And then bring that when you're going through any of your flirty bits in those 6 different types of flirt. All right, my loves. So go forth, flirt the shit out of your sweeties this week and enjoy. And I will see you here next time. Hey, if you're curious about how you could have better sex and connections, go grab my free guide, Find Your Secret Turn-Ons. It's right on my website, www.laurajurgens.com, and the link is in the show notes. I'll see you here next time.